Hi, my name is Mike Theiss, and I teach my face-to-face classes at the University of Wisconsin Marathon campus. I also teach for the University of Wisconsin online campus. I will be working with you in an application called Microsoft Excel. Going to be doing some more advanced formulas. It's not that the formulas themselves are that advanced in any mathematical sense. It's just that we're combining a number of the tools that you've been using in a solo mode, and now you're going to be putting them together in a statement that explains a mathematical relationship between the certain cells here in our document. Now the worksheet that we have, please note it's been designed well. It's pretty easy to read. We have everything organized very well. We have an assumption area where my mouse is floating around. The constants are in that area, like the base work hours, the overtime rate, these things that could change if the company policy or laws might change. And for the time being, we put them here so we can refer to them when we need them. And using absolute cell references, you'll see how this works, that we can come up with solutions very quickly. The tax rate, tax pay, tax rate is over here on its own little area. And if you really look close at that, hey, that's a table. There's a real small table here, and I can use one of our lookup functions to get to this data. And then I like the fact that under the assumption area are the notes. This area down here literally explains the mathematical relationships that are going to be calculated on the data that we have up above here. And I'm just going to move my little bit. There we go. I have everything so we can all see it at one time. And hey, I've got a lot going on here. What I'd like to do is I'm going to use the fact that what you see displayed here is just the result of the math. I'm going to double click in a cell and we can see the actual formula used. When I double clicked in the cell, it opens it up so that I can do some editing, and this is pretty concise, so I'm going to just use my mouse. I started with the equal sign and I knew I wanted to use the if-then statement. Okay, if what's in D5, okay, that's this area right here, this is the cell for D5, is less than what's in B15, the base work hours. Okay, see the little green box around that? B15 corresponds to, it's using the number 40. Please note this is an absolute cell reference. So when we do some autofill later on, it'll keep referring to the right cell. That's our test. Okay? And in our kit right now, is it less? No, 48 is not less than 40. So if the value is true, this relationship here where I'm floating the mouse right now isn't going to be implemented. We're not going to take D5 times C5. We're moving here to what we're going to do if the value is false. The test didn't pan out. We're going to take what's in C5 and multiply it times the value in B15. That's what's going on in that relationship. And we get displayed a number. Now, this regular pay only took care of the 40-hour work week. We've still got 8 hours we owe this person for. And we owe this person 8 hours at time and a half. Okay, there's an overtime rate we've got to be aware of down here. So let's double click in this cell. Hope this works for you. I'm using if then again. I'm still measuring what's in D5. But this time I changed the logical test a little bit. It's saying if what's in D5 is greater than the base work hours in cell B15, then you're going to, if it's true, do this relationship, and if it's false, you might implement another one. D5, okay, minus B15. That's going to take what's in D5, it's going to subtract the 40 from B15, leave us a value, it's going to have a value of 8. 8 overtime hours, and they're going to be multiplied times what's in C5, that's the regular hourly rate, times this number down here for the overtime rate. So we're going to take the hourly wage, multiply it by 1.5, okay, and we're going to have a value. I'm going to take, and inside here I'm going to add, I'm going to fine-tune this a little bit, because I'm going to put in a comma and I'm going to have it put in a 0, okay, if it's false. Otherwise, if I didn't put this 0 in here, the comma and the 0 for the value if false, and if I ran into some like this one here where Moons only works 20 hours and one of the other people only works, it'll put the word false in there, and I didn't want that. So I fine-tuned my work here a little bit. I'm going to tap the old enter key. Okay, gross pay. We got overtime pay. The gross pay is pretty easy relationship. It's what's in regular pay, and I'm adding that to what's in my overtime pay. The taxable pay is just a hair different, okay? It's going to take what is in B5, which is the number of dependents, times a number down here. Let me just move down a little bit, okay? There's a deduction for each dependent. So I'm taking what's in B5, multiplying it times this, okay, and I'm subtracting it from my regular pay. That's where this value came from. The federal withholding tax is one of those a little trickier again, okay? And in this one, and it's explained down in the notes, I'm going to take, let me do a double mouse click here to open this up. I'm saying, hey computer, I've got this formula coming. I'm going to use the VLOOKUP function, okay? And the lookup value that I'm looking up is in H5. I have to tell it, go to H5 computer and find a value. Now once I find that value, then I got to go to this area, which is the table array. I had to tell it that I selected, let me scroll down a little bit more, I selected from D15 all the way over here to E, what is that, 19. I did not include the labels, by the way. This is the table array. This is where the data lies. This is where I can find my number to do the calculating with. There's a number 2 right above my mouse cursor. That means in the table, I'm going to go over to the second column. Column 1, column 2. I go to the second column to find the value. I take that value. See, I close parenthesis here. I take that value, whatever it is, and I'm going to multiply it times what I found over here in H5. Again, let me tap enter. So there's $104 being subtracted, okay? This FICA tax is much simpler. The relationship is what's in good old H5 again, okay, times what's in B17, right down here. This is where the value of the assumption area is. I made it absolute because I'm going to use the fill down handle and I want to make sure everything is calculated correctly. My net pay, pretty easy one there. You just take good old H5, everything that's ready here, and you subtract the two taxable items and you're going to have a value. You should have already figured out that if you take these appropriate cells in the first row, and if you've built your relationships accurately and made what's absolute absolute and what's relative you just leave alone, you can take the autofill handle and you can pull down 6 rows or 600 rows, but the relationships will all be carried out. Okay, like I said earlier, if I hadn't put that 0 in, the word false would have showed up. Doesn't do anything, it just makes your worksheet look a little disorganized. Doesn't affect the math at all. The math is still appropriate. A little bit more advanced calculations that you're working with, but hope this kind of helps get your head around how to use these tools, because most of us, when we start out especially, we're not used to thinking using cell references and functions. Once you get your head into it, and some people adapt quite quick, some people takes more time, this is really handy. In fact, sometimes it's almost fun. Thanks a lot.